Hello and welcome to another episode of the BSN podcast. Today is Friday, September 2nd. Hope everybody's having a good day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Friday, September 2nd, day 2 of September. As we head here into Labor Day weekend, and then really after Labor Day weekend, that's when things really start to get, started off. Then you go Monday will be Labor Day. That will be the start of game week in the NFL. We are now only 6 days away from Bills-Rams. We are now 9 days away from the first Sunday of all the football games. So really, really looking forward to that. This is kind of the final big weekend of summer, and then football starts up, and then right behind that, you got October baseball, which is super exciting, and it's an exciting time around New York and exciting time around the New York sports area with the Yankees and the Mets both being in contention. And, obviously, Mets get the big win yesterday. Yankees take, to have a day off. They have taken a lot of losses recently. I mean, it's just been terrible. I've explained it many times on this podcast of how much they've been struggling. And, though they had a day off yesterday, opportunity to regroup. They call up Oswald Peraza yesterday to expand the roster. They also reinstated Marwin Gonzalez. So, now you just hope again. They called up Florial and Cabrera earlier on, and then that didn't really work. Cabrera's been nice. Florial went back down. That really wasn't, the spark maybe that we needed. Now you call it Peraza. Is this another opportunity for maybe a spark? Give this team a little bit of juice, a little bit of a jolt of some young energy, and see if things can turn around, because this is a big series in Tampa. A monstrous series in Tampa. So game 1 of a 3-game set today. Yankees-Rays at Tropicana Field in Tampa. Finally, we got no more of these 9, 10 o'clock games, that are going to be on the West Coast anymore. That's it. And unless if, playoffs and World Series and stuff like that, unless if that's way down the road. But, finally, the 7 games of these 9 o'clock starts. The earliest start was 4 o'clock Eastern. That was on Sunday against the A's. But other than that, it was just all these 9 o'clock starts, and it was so annoying. So, good to see that the game tonight is at a normal time, 7 Eastern. Mets will also open up a 3-game series today after closing out yesterday's series in a big way with a big win against the Dodgers. And the Mets take 2 or 3 against the Dodgers, and they actually win the season series. So a very good series win for the Mets. Kind of get back on track after they had a very bad taste in their mouth after that Sunday game against the Rockies, in which they could not get a hit. But a very big win for the Mets yesterday. Big series win for the Mets after dropping the first game. They bounced back twice. And again, that's what Buck Showalter is going to do with his teams. Again, and I mentioned this many times, they're not going to get too high and they're not going to get too low. They lose to the Dodgers game 1, bounce back, big win game 2. Yesterday, bounce back and win game 3. Right? You have that tough loss against the Rockies. You don't let that affect you. You win the next 2 of the 3 games against the Dodgers. So, good series win for the Mets. They'll be back in action tonight. Game 1 of a 3-game set at Citi Field against the Nationals. And the Yankees open up a 3-game set in Tampa against the Rays, as I mentioned. All right, so let's get to the topics for today's podcast on this Friday show. A packed show today. Got a little football, a little basketball. We're gonna open things up today with my 4th division, or my 2nd division, 4th kind of day of doing this. It is going to be my NFC North predictions today. So I did the AFC East on Monday, NFC East on Tuesday, or AFC East on Tuesday, NFC East on Wednesday. Yesterday I did the AFC North. Today I'll do the NFC North, and then Monday will be the AFC South. Tuesday will be NFC South. Wednesday will be the AFC West, and we'll finish things off on Thursday along with my preview and all that, power rankings, all that for the football season, because Thursday will be Rams-Bills with my NFC West predictions then. So looking forward to all that. That should be good and exciting. So today I'll give you my NFC North predictions. This was a tough division to do because you got 2 very good teams I think there's going to be 2 very good teams in the NFC North, and there's another team that maybe could make a little bit of noise if they go on a little bit of a run. So we'll see. So NFC North predictions today to close out the week. I'll also get into the big trade that happened yesterday in the world of the NBA. Donovan Mitchell traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers. A massive blockbuster deal, as the New York Knicks, all the rumors about the Knicks possibly going out and getting Donovan Mitchell are now over. Donovan Mitchell, the saga and all that stuff is done. Donovan Mitchell's going to Cleveland, and the Jazz have now officially entered a big rebuild, getting rid of Rudy Gobert, sending him to Minnesota, and now sending Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland. They are now officially deep into a rebuild. We'll get into that and where the Jazz go from here, and what this means for the Cavs and the rest of the Eastern Conference, because the Cavs are officially now legit when you look at their starting 5. We'll also get to the New York Sports Update, to finish things off, like I mentioned. Mets tonight against the Nationals, game 1 of 3-game set. Look, you should take those 3 games. It's the Nationals. They're not very good. They're struggling this season, although Joey Meneses for the Nationals has been phenomenal this year. I mean, it's been a great story, but the Mets should take 3 of those games, at least win the series. And the Yankees against Tampa, it's going to be tough. You got to find a way to win at least 2. You can't come out of that series losing 2 or 3, and especially if it's like Saturday and Sunday, you get blown out. Especially if you win tonight and then you lose the next 2, that can't happen. You can't limp out of there. So big couple games coming up for both the Yankees and the Mets. All right, with all that being said, a lot to get into here on this Friday edition of the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So like I mentioned, today is my NFC North prediction. So as I said, each day I'm doing this up until Thursday will be my last day, given that it will be the NFL start of the NFL season, and today I will give you my NFC North. So last year, how the NFC North played out, you had the Packers finishing first at 13-4, you had the Vikings finishing second at 8-9, Bears finishing third at 6-11, and the Lions finished in last 3-13, and they had the 1 tie. So the Packers last year in the NFC North were the only team to make the postseason. They got into the postseason at 13-4, as we all know. They ended up losing to the Niners, all that good stuff. Davante Adams no longer with the team, so that was it. Vikings, Bears, Lions all finished below 500 and all missed the postseason last year. So the NFC North last year was pretty dominated by the Packers, and has been dominated by the Packers for a very long time, really ever since Rodgers has been here, has been in Green Bay, and through the McCarthy era, and now even under LaFleur. So they've had, they've been good for very long. Now it seems as if, with Davante Adams going, now him going to Vegas to play with the Raiders, it almost seems now there's a little bit of a changing of the guard maybe between the Packers and the Vikings. I think that I don't think there's going to be a major change, but it's definitely interesting to keep your eye out on this division, because this is NFC North has some interesting teams in it. It really does. So let's get right into it here. So my first place team, I do have the Packers finishing first. And again, I know I said there might be a little bit of a changing of the guard. I don't think this is going to be an easy division for the Packers to win this year. I don't. And I think the Vikings are going to finish in second. We'll get to them here in a little bit. But I've said this about the Packers many times this offseason. Davante Adams is a big loss for them. But at the end of the day, and I've talked about this a lot on this podcast, the importance of having a very good quarterback, the Packers have Aaron Rodgers, two-time back-to-back MVP. And we all know what he's capable of. We all know what he's able to do when he's out there. Davante Adams is a big loss. And I know, when you look at the teams and you look at who got better this season and who got worse, the Packers are one of those teams that you maybe say, they kind of got worse. But they still got Allen Lazard at their receiver spot. They still got 2 very good running backs. A.J. Dillon, younger guy, and then Aaron Jones, who's had a very good career. You still have Aaron Rodgers. You look at that secondary, Rasul Douglas and Zaire Alexander. You still have a couple guys there, Rashawn Gary, all those guys. You have definitely some good pieces on the defensive side of the ball. And the Packers, their biggest issue, and I've always said this, the biggest issue with the Packers has been their playoff performances. It hasn't been in the regular season. It's been in the postseason. They win 12, 13 games every year. They get to the postseason, they struggle, right? And that's the big thing. And they always blow it. Whether it's against the Niners, whether it's 2020 against the Bucs, whether it's last year against the Niners again, they always find ways to blow it in the postseason. They've always dominated in the regular season. Get to the postseason, they don't win. They just it's just something doesn't click with them in the postseason. I don't know if it's the pressure. I don't know. It's weird because Rodgers has been to the postseason so many times and he's only come out of it with 1 Super Bowl, and that was forever ago. So, that's been the one thing with this Packers team. So that's why I'm not really concerned that they're just going to fall off the face of the earth and be this 6-win team this year. Now, there is potential for them to struggle. If Rodgers and Allen Lazard and his receivers, you hope Robert Tonyan can have a better year this year. He had a very terrible year last year. You hope he can bounce back this season after having an injury and kind of just a terrible year. You hope he can bounce back because he's a big piece. Especially, without your number 1 receiver, if you can have a tight end to rely on, that's big. But again, I look at this as you still have Aaron Rodgers. You still have a good run game. Your defense is still pretty solid. I think the Packers are going to win the division. It might not be as easy as past years, and I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe fall to second, but I'm going to say the Packers win a division. So my floor for the Packers is 8-9. And look, this is if Rodgers can't find his tight ends, Rodgers can't get Lazard involved, Rodgers can't do anything without Adams. That's really when it comes down to, because there is potential. If Rodgers struggles without Adams, then that's bad. So There is potential maybe to 8-9. I don't see much less. I don't see this team falling to a 6-5 win team. I just don't. There's too much talent still on the roster to be that bad. So my floor is 8-9. Ceiling's 13-4. I still believe, if Rodgers plays like he has all of his career, even now without Adams, they still have potential to be a 13-4 win team or a 13-4 record. They still have that potential. So I have their ceiling at 13-4, and my prediction for the Packers, one less win than last year. They finish in first at 12-5. All right, so my second place team is the Minnesota Vikings. And, the Vikings, I've always said this for years now. Now they got a new coach. There's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of positive energy, and rightfully so. When you look at this Vikings team, there is a lot of talent on this roster. You look at their offense, and it speaks for itself. Kirk Cousins at quarterback, he's not a terrible quarterback. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. But he's, the middle of the line, average, solid, like top 15, top 17 quarterback in football. He's not terrible, and that's always been the thing. I really think Minnesota this year is going to take a big jump. I think Minnesota, in my opinion, gets into the postseason because I like Minnesota a lot. I like their offense. Kirk Cousins at your quarterback spot, not bad, not terrible. Again, they just haven't, Zimmer has not, they just have not had the right coach for these past couple seasons. It's just been, things haven't clicked the right way. They have all the weapons, though. When you look at this Vikings offense, they have more weapons than Rodgers has. Now, Rodgers is the more talented quarterback, so that's probably why you might see him, play a little bit better just because he's the better quarterback. He might not need as many weapons. But look at the weapons that he has. Justin Jefferson, Irv Smith Jr., who they're very high at the tight end position. The two running backs, Alexander Mattison and Dalvin Cook. Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne. There's so many good weapons on this offense. I think I already mentioned Adam Thielen. I mean, this offense is so talented. You bring in an offensive-minded coach. You bring in a guy that's worked with some of the best, was on that Rams Super Bowl team last year, working with Stafford. Like, you bring that guy, you bring him in, and you could see this offense explode, and the defense has always been pretty solid. It's just been a matter of the offense finding its rhythm with a ton of talent. Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen. You can make the argument they have a top 5 receiver and a top 5 running back on their offense. That's not common on many teams. A lot of teams, they have a strong receiving core, maybe not great running backs. You can make the argument that they have the best running back and the best receiver in football on their team. I would probably disagree. I think Jefferson, you could make the argument he's maybe the best in football. I don't think Dalvin Cook's the best in football. I think Jonathan Taylor is. That's just me. But Dalvin Cook's very good. I got him in fantasy. So they got a very good roster. There are a couple games there where it's going to be tough. Them and Green Bay this year, it's going to go back and forth. So I have the Vikings floor at 8-9. I have their ceiling at 13-4. And my prediction for them is 11-6. Again, I think it could be 12-5, and I think the Packers will still own the tiebreaker there, but it could get interesting. It really could, because this is a very, when you look at this Vikings roster, it's never been a lack of talent. It's never been. They've had this talent for many years. It's just been coaching. They now got their coach. They got their guy. Kirk Cousins got his offensive mind, and now, it's time to take off a little bit if you're Minnesota. Big year for the Vikings. Big year, especially for Kirk Cousins, because if they struggle this year and Kirk Cousins doesn't play well, it might be a changing of the guard, in the offseason. So I have the Vikings finished in second at 11-6. Again, could be 12-5, and things could really get interesting between Green Bay and Minnesota when tiebreakers get involved. And I have Minnesota beating Green Bay at home and Green Bay beating Minnesota at home. I have both of them splitting. So it's going to come down to better, record in the division and all that kind of stuff. If it does get to the point 12-5, it's going to be a fun division. I don't think this is going to be a year where Packers are 13-4 and the Vikings are 8-9. I don't think it's going to be. I think the Vikings are going to make a very, very strong push to be a first place team. So third place, I have the Detroit Lions, which would leave the Chicago Bears in last. And look, I like Dan Campbell a lot. And this is what's funny about this Lions team. They're not really that talented. They're not greatly talented. Like, when you look at the Vikings and you look at their struggles, it's been the coaching. For the Lions, last year the Lions were in basically every single game. They were in every game. And when you look at this Lions roster and you go ahead and say, look at their quarterback and Jared Goff. Look at their running game, and you got DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. That's a solid running game. DeAndre Swift obviously leading the way. Offensive line, Penei Sewell, you got some pieces there. You got some young pieces. It's a building block, right? You look at the receiving core, Jameson Williams, you already have, DJ Chark. You got some guys there, Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? You got some guys. Obviously Jameson Williams being their draft pick this season. And you look at the defense and you go, okay, Jeff Okudah, hopefully he can have kind of show a little bit more progress after, struggling a little bit. Yeah, drafted Aiden Hutchinson. Like, they have some pieces. It's just, like, their quarterback's interesting. They have some receivers. They got Hawkinson at tight end. They have some pieces. It's just like, are they up there with Green Bay? Are they up there with Minnesota? I don't think so yet. But I'll tell you this Lions team has potential. If things go, because again, last year you could look at the Lions and say 3-13-1, and I get it. They lost 13 games. I'm not going to, it's a loss is a loss, a win is a win. I've always said that. I hate when people say, oh, well, they played well, or, oh, well, this happened. No, a loss is a loss, a win is a win. But they were in basically every game. I mean, they pushed Baltimore. It took Baltimore history on a field goal from Justin Tucker to win the game. They were up there against some of the best teams in all football. They were in tight games almost every single. They just could not close out games. If the Lions last year closed out those games, they're an 8-9 win team, and they may making a little bit of noise late in the year in terms of trying to push into a playoff spot. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team, but what I will say is the Lions aren't going to be a team that's just going to go down easily this year. Again, they're going to be competitive. They're going to battle. I don't think Goff is their quarterback of the future, and I think they're probably going into the offseason going to go draft a quarterback and go from there and really maybe take off. But Dan Campbell's got these guys fighting. I mean, they're not the most talented roster. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown's not the biggest name receiver. DJ Chark's not the biggest name. You have Jameson Williams. TJ Hawkinson's solid. He's not the biggest name tight end ever. Like, they do have DeAndre Swift and, but they have Jared Goff. Like, they're not the flashiest team, but their coach gets them to buy in. Lions are an interesting team this year. Now, their defense, too, like I said, Okudah, Hutchinson, some young talent there. I do have their floor at 4-13. Okay, this is, again, not a greatly talented roster. If the Lions struggle this year and Goff struggles and they're just not playing well, they're probably a 3-4 win team again. Be just looking at the roster. But if they do what they need to do, if they play physical football, if Dan Campbell's got these guys believing, their ceiling is on. I wrote down 7-10, and I also wrote on top of it could be 8-9. It could get to 8-9. I'm going to roll with 7-10, but it could be 8-9 as well. Their ceiling. I'm going to roll with 7-10 though. Again, this could be a team that could make a little. This could be a team where the Lions. I think are going to turn into a team where, and again, I don't think they're going to win a ton of games, but they're going to be in every game. They're going to be in every game, and if they find a way to close out some of these games, they could be an interesting team. My prediction for the Lions though is 6-11. So I have their ceiling at 7-10, floor 4-13, and I have them finishing in third place at 6-11. And I think they'll go into the offseason having to make a decision on Jared Goff. Is he your guy? Are they going to go draft somebody? I think they're going to get answers on Hutchinson. I think they're going to get answers on Jameson Williams. I think those guys are going to make some plays this year. But your big thing is your quarterback. So Lions go 6-10, 3 more wins than last year. And I think this Lions team is going to be, again, one of those teams where they're in almost every game. They're going to close out a little bit more, but they're going to be in a lot of games again. That seems the way Dan Campbell does things in Detroit. So I have the Lions finishing third. In last place, I have finishing the Bears. Look, I don't. Again, I think Justin Fields is in a terrible situation. This isn't me as a Jet fan trying to act like, because I know some Jet fans out there trying to act like, oh, Fields stinks. Like, this is not, again, when you look at the Bears record, this is not Justin Fields' fault. The Bears just have done nothing to build around him. I mean, they really have nothing. I mean, sure, they have David Montgomery. Allen Robinson's no longer there. He's now with the Rams. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. You do have Darnell Mooney. You have Cole Kmet. Your defense is all right. Not phenomenal. This Bears team's just not talented enough. And again, when you look at the NFC North, you have a team. You have the Packers and the Vikings, going to be 2 double-digit win teams. You have the Lions, who are going to be physical, and they're going to be in every game. The Lions are better than the Bears. I mean, they are. I would say the Lions have more talent at the skill position than the Bears. I would say that. I mean, look at the receiving core of the Lions. Look at the receiving core of the Bears. The Bears' receiving core, it's Darnell Mooney, and that's about it. That's about it. You're relying on Darnell Mooney to really be your guy. So, and I understand you do have Cole Kmet and stuff, and he's got a little bit of, he's a young tight end that's still developing and still learning. But I mean, they've done a terrible, terrible job, and yeah, they've done a terrible, terrible job of building around Justin Fields. Yeah, sure, they have N'Keal Harry. What is he gonna do? I mean, and again, when you look at this division, there's a lot of talent in this division, and the Bears just aren't talented enough. And again, I don't want to act like I'm saying this. I don't think this is not going to be Justin Fields' fault. This is going to be the front office's fault not building around him. Justin Fields is going to have to rely on Darnell Mooney, and he's solid, but I mean, he's not really, I mean, they have no depth. It's Darnell Mooney, N'Keal Harry, and that's about it. I mean, your running back is very good, and David Montgomery's one of the better ones out there. Very solid running back. That's good, but your defense is Eddie Jackson, okay, he's kind of old, he's not quite the same. This Bears, they just don't have enough talent. His team's not talented. And I understand new coach, all that stuff, but I don't believe in this Bears roster. I don't. And I think they're going to be bottom. I mean, there's not much else I have to say. They're not talented enough. Sure, they have Justin Fields, a young quarterback, and if he makes some plays, but who's he going to throw the ball to? N'Keal Harry and Darnell Mooney you're relying on as your two number one guys? I mean, and again, look at the other situation. Like, look at these other young quarterbacks. And I'll get to Jacksonville, on Monday when I do the AFC South and stuff. But, even look at the Jets. And I'm not trying to say this because I'm a Jet fan. I don't want to sound biased. But the Jets built around Zach Wilson. Got him Elijah Moore. Got him Garrett Wilson. Got him Corey Davis, Braxton Berrios. You're asking N'Keal Harry and Darnell Mooney to be your 1 and 2 receivers for a young. It just no. They don't have enough talent. They're not talented enough. So I have the Bears. Their floor could get as worse than 3-14. Their ceiling 6-11. I don't see anything else. They're just, again, they're not going to go in Green Bay and win. They're going to probably lose to Green Bay twice. They're going to lose to Minnesota Vikings twice. It's automatically 4 losses. They're not beating Green Bay and they're not beating Minnesota. I can almost guarantee that. They got some other tough teams on their schedule, obviously. Again, Detroit's not going to be an easy team to beat. They're not going to be incredibly difficult to beat, but they're not going to be one of these teams where you're just going to say, "Oh, we got Detroit." Detroit's competitive. They don't always win games, but they're in games. Detroit's a more talented football team than Chicago. So the Bears are going to go, and I have the Bears finishing in last at 4-13. Not talented enough. That's it. Not because of Justin Fields, because of what's around him. Look what's around Justin Fields. You're asking N'Keal Harry and Darnell Mooney to be your two main guys, and you're also asking Cole Kmet, what is he, second-year tight end, to make big plays after hasn't really shown you a ton. A second or third-year tight end, whatever he is. So, not enough talent. So I look at this NFC North, and it's a good division at the top half. Interesting when you get to the Lions, and the Bears are not going to be good. So I have the Packers finishing first. Once again, just to kind of sum things up here. Packers finishing in first, 12-5. Vikings finishing in second at 11-6. Lions finishing third at 6-11. And the Bears finishing in last at 4-13. So out of this division, right now I have the Giants and the Cowboys not the Giants and the Cowboys. Cowboys and the Eagles making the NFC East. Packers and the Vikings making it in the NFC North. So that's 4 playoff teams so far. And now NFC South and NFC West will need to produce 3 teams. So I'll tell you that on Tuesday and on Thursday who my other 3 playoff teams coming out of the NFC are. So I have the Vikings and the Packers and the Eagles, Cowboys all in the playoffs right now in the NFC. NFC South, NFC West, that will be Tuesday. I'll be in my NFC South. Thursday will be NFC West, which is going to be a fun division. NFC West is going to be fun. NFC West is a tough division to pick, again, because you have the Rams. Seahawks are not much of a factor. What are the Niners going to be, and what is Kyler Murray really the guy in Arizona? So 2 playoff teams coming out of the AFC North, 2 playoff teams coming out of the NFC East, and we'll see how the rest of that plays out next week. So that is my NFC North standings. Again, just to give you it one more time, Packers finishing in first, Vikings second, Lions third, and finishing in last is the Bears. Monday will be AFC South. Tuesday will be NFC South. Wednesday will be AFC West. Thursday will be NFC West. AFC South is going to be interesting. Texans, Titans, Colts, Jaguars. be an interesting division. So that's what I got for the NFC North, and the divisions roll on next week with the AFC South, NFC South, AFC West, and in the NFC West for the respective conferences. All right, so let's get to a little bit of basketball here. And obviously there's been a ton of baseball. I actually had a tough time today figuring out what I exactly was going to do because you had the Russell Wilson news, but I figured I'm talking football almost every day. I'm talking football every day on this podcast up until Thursday. And so I might touch up on it when I do the NFC West on Thursday of next week, the standings there. But it's funny because, you had all this news. Like you have Russell Wilson signing. And then you had now the Donovan Mitchell trade. And then you go to the Yankees and you hear the news about Oswald Peraza getting called up. So there was a ton of news yesterday, but I figured I'd pick out a little bit of a basketball topic here as we got some blockbuster news yesterday. Donovan Mitchell has been traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So through all the rumors, through all of the trade proposals, through all the rumored trades from the New York Knicks, Donovan Mitchell is not going to be a New York Knick. And, I'm going to start with this. If you're a New York Knicks fan today, you have every right to be frustrated with the organization. You do. And I know, and I've said this, I've kind of went back and forth about this a lot on this podcast. When the Knicks first, when these rumors first broke about Donovan Mitchell, about him possibly, kind of wanting out, the Jazz being willing to trade him. And then earlier in the offseason, you see Rudy Gobert goes to Minnesota, and you're like, well, that Donovan Mitchell is going to be the next one to get traded just because of the fact that Rudy Gobert is gone. Those were kind of the duo. So you move Rudy Gobert, now you're just going to keep Donovan Mitchell. So we all kind of knew a deal was going to get done. It was only a matter of time. And a lot of people thought it was going to be to the New York Knicks. Now, if you're a Knicks fan, you have every right to be frustrated because this was the Knicks to lose. And the Knicks lost this. Like, it seemed like this was the Knicks. They were all in. Like, Donovan Mitchell was the Knicks to lose. Like, if you follow what I'm saying. Like, the Knicks had Donovan Mitchell. Like, they could have got him. They had the pieces to do it. They just didn't do it. And, again, Donovan Mitchell, dad being, with the New York, with, the connections, with the Mets and it being in New York and knowing the market, him being a Met fan, you see all of his tweets about the Mets, going to some of the games, wearing the jersey, walking into some of the games, even while I was out in Utah. Like, he loved the Mets, kind of loved the city, goes back with his dad and all that stuff. Like, all that stuff. This was a perfect match. He knows the market. He knows how to play in it. He knows what it takes. And the New York Knicks have a big swing and miss again. That's my big takeaway. And again, I'm a Net fan. And I'm glad that I'm not a Knicks fan sometimes because, sure, there's some times where the Nets have made many times the Nets have been made boneheaded decisions. But if you're a Knicks fan today, you have every right to be frustrated. Because yet again, you go into the offseason as a Knicks fan, and yet again, you find yourself in a position where you're in line possibly to get another superstar, and you miss out on another one. I mean, how many years do we have to go through this where the Knicks just miss out? Whether it was Kawhi Leonard, whether it's Damian Lillard, whether it's Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, everybody thinks all these guys are going to the Knicks, and they never do. And this is another prime example of the Knicks front office missing out on a game-changing, franchise-altering decision and a franchise-altering player that the Knicks missed out on. And again, I wasn't anti-extending R.J. Barrett. I know the Knicks extended him and all that stuff. I wasn't anti that because a lot of people might sit here and say, well, you were happy, you were okay with the R.J. Barrett sign. I wasn't anti-R.J. Barrett. What I said was, I would be okay with R.J. Barrett going to the, I think it would be smart for the Knicks. It wouldn't be stupid for the Knicks to give up R.J. Barrett, but it wouldn't be dumb to also keep him. The Knicks have other young talent. Quickly, Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson, all those. They have a lot of young talent. They have a lot of draft capital. Use it. The Knicks just always hold on to picks, always hold on to players. They turn out to be nothing, and that's why you have this cycle of pain for the past decade. And they haven't had success since Melo was with the team back in, obviously, that 2012 team, which is, 10 years ago now, as we're living in 2022? A couple months from now will be 2023. They have not made the postseason in forever. I mean, I know they made it 2020, but, I get that, but they haven't had postseason success in forever. They didn't get past the first round. They didn't make any noise. They weren't like a true threat going in. So if you're a Knicks fan, you have every right to be frustrated because yet again, you miss out on a top-tier talent. And when are things going to change? When are things going to change for the New York Knicks in terms of the front office going out and making a move for a star player? Again, RJ Barrett's going to be good. He's improving. But you have to realize Donovan Mitchell on the Knicks would have made this team an automatic playoff contender. You add that to Jalen Brunson. I mean, people have to realize basketball, unlike baseball, unlike football, unlike hockey, football to a certain extent. If you have a great quarterback in football, you're going to win games. Okay, but other than that, all these other sports, now hockey a little bit too. If you have a great goaltender, you're going to win games. If you could have a terrible offense, you could have a terrible forecheck, you could have a terrible, center, all that stuff. You can't, might not be good on faceoffs. You could have just all around awful. If you have a great goalie, you're going to do well. But I always say this about basketball, and we all know this about basketball. One guy can lead a team to a postseason. Look at LeBron James. I mean, look at all these teams. I mean, to be honest, even look at like all these teams, like Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell. This Knicks team would have gotten in. It would have gotten in, without a doubt, especially in the West. So, poor job of the Knicks. And I understand they extended RJ Barrett, and I, even though I'm not a Knicks fan, I didn't think that was a bad idea. But that doesn't mean you should have stopped your pursuit or stopped your, pursuit of Donovan Mitchell. RJ Barrett's good, but Donovan Mitchell's amazing, and you're getting him in his prime. And again, knows the New York market going back with, to his dad's days of and all that stuff. Like, it was a perfect fit, and the Knicks missed an opportunity. So I don't know, and we'll get to the Cavs side of this and the actual deal here in a second, but I had to start out with the Knicks. I don't know when the day will come when the Knicks actually execute and capitalize on one of these superstars. Because again, the list goes on and on and on and on of superstars that the Knicks were looking at and never got. Every year it's like, oh, the Knicks could get this guy. The Knicks could get this guy. And every year they are disappointed as Knicks fans. So it's funny. It really is. But the Knicks find themselves in a spot again where they miss out on another superstar. And I think Knicks fans today are probably feeling the point where it's like every year it's like they're in on a superstar. When is it going to get to the time where they're no longer in on a super, or when is it going to get to a time where they're actually in on a superstar and they actually get the superstar? Who knows? Who knows? They thought they were getting Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, never happened. Damian Lillard rumors pop up, never happened. They thought they were going to get Donovan Mitchell, never happened. When Kawhi Leonard left the Raptors, everybody was like, oh, maybe the Knicks, never happened. So, even to go back to the draft, everybody was like, oh, Zion Williamson to the Knicks, never happened. So, the Knicks miss out on another superstar, and you have to question the front office, when is the time going to come where they actually go out, make the right move, give up the right deal for the New York Knicks, and for a superstar player like Donovan Mitchell. So the Cavs get Donovan Mitchell. And, now I'll go to the Cavs side of this here and really go to, what the Jazz are doing. The Jazz are completely tearing it all up. Danny Ainge is blowing it all up, which isn't surprising considering he traded Rudy Gobert. This whole Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert kind of tandem duo really hasn't worked out the way that they all expected, I think. That's just my opinion. Again, I think this is kind of obvious. Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell being with the Jazz, it just didn't work out. They get to the postseason, they just couldn't get over the hump, couldn't get to the next level, couldn't get to the finals, couldn't really win fully there. And you knew once Gobert went to Minnesota, and you knew the return, not even that Gobert went to Minnesota, the return that the Jazz got, you knew they were going into a rebuild mode, and the next piece to fall was Donovan Mitchell. And that piece falls yesterday. So Donovan Mitchell traded to the Cavs from the Jazz, obviously. And this is the deal. So 3 unprotected firsts in the deal. And we heard this when you heard the rumors about the Knicks being involved. And again, this is what I'm also talking about the Knicks. Like, the Knicks seem like the only team to be involved. Cavs the last couple days kind of started to pick up steam. And now look, it's like, Cavs get them. Knicks are too slow at times, it seems. So, the Cavs gave up 3 unprotected picks to get Mitchell, and that's all the Cavs get. That's all they get is Donovan Mitchell. But again, you're getting Donovan Mitchell. So here you go. So the Jazz get Lauri Markkanen, Ochai Agbaji, who is a rookie, Colin Sexton, and then you get 3 unprotected first-round picks, which is 2025, 2027, 2029. So pretty long time from now, but still, they're all unprotected. Teams value those so much, and the Jazz now have a ton of picks, even going back now to the Gobert deal from Minnesota, and they also get 2 pick swaps, 2026, 2028. So the Jazz right now, we sit here in 2022, they're going to have picks lined up for about the next 10 years of just straight draft picks where they can just continue to build their roster. And, you hear rumors that it looks like they're trying to move on from other veterans like Conley and Jordan Clarkson and Bogdanovich and all those guys. So they're really tearing it up. The big name in this deal, though, is Colin Sexton. He's going to Jazz, and that's a good building block. Colin Sexton obviously has had a really solid career, a young player that's getting better. He's put together a really nice career. He's a guy that is going to go to Utah, in a way, the foundation, kind of be the guy in Utah, kind of the foundation of that team, and they're going to kind of build around him. I feel like, they're obviously, if they get the first overall pick in next year's draft, that's going to be the guy they build around. But Colin Sexton's a really nice young piece to have, and that was kind of like the headliner in this deal, not including Donovan Mitchell. You get Lauri Markkanen, who's solid. I mean, he's, good, his years with the Bulls and all that stuff. He's solid, not phenomenal. You wonder how long he's going to be there. He might be kind of there for this season, and then you see where he is. He's not incredibly young, kind of in there. And in Ochai Agbaji, you'll see. I mean, I guess. Again, it's a rebuild. So they're going to get a lot of these. You're going to get a lot of these young guys reps. They're going to just get them reps. And I think that's the big thing for the Jazz. And Danny Ainge has done this. I mean, going back to, the Boston days, he's done it. He's executed on all these draft picks. He's done this before. So the Jazz are entering a full-blown rebuild where they have some pieces. They're gonna build. They got some young talent. They got a ton of draft picks. They're gonna build through the draft. That's a big thing. And sometimes you see the approach teams take. Do they build through the draft or do they acquire the young talent? Because sometimes you see teams when they make these trades, they acquire young talent, and they do. And obviously, the Jazz did it. But if you get what I'm saying, like there's times where you see teams they'll trade for a superstar and they'll give them a bunch of young talent already young. Jazz are looking more for the draft picks. They want to build through the draft. Danny Ainge having success building through the draft. History tells us Danny Ainge building through the draft, he's going to build winners. And again, you look at the time in Utah, the Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert thing just never worked out. They get to the postseason every year, they just couldn't get to that next level. And that's the big thing. And were they one more piece away? Were they maybe a legit shooter away? It's possible. It just, they had a really good depth. Jordan Clarkson every year being like the 6th man of the year. They had a lot of good depth. They had their rebounder. They had their scorer. Did they maybe need just another? I mean, they had Royce O'Neal too a little bit, where a guy that was kind of a 3-and-D guy. They just maybe were missing one little piece. And now it seems as if, now everything's all blown up. So Gobert goes to Minnesota, Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland. Jazz now enter a rebuild. And for Cleveland, they are now a true threat in the Eastern Conference. You look at this Cleveland roster now. They were good last year, obviously getting to the play-in, and they ended up obviously losing to the Nets. And I think they lost. Did they beat or did the Hawks beat them? I forget. The Cavs were good last year, right? And they were good last year with the talent that they had last year. You now add Donovan Mitchell to the mix, they're that much better. You look at this Cavs projected lineup. Darius Garland at point guard, Donovan Mitchell, obviously newly acquired at shooting guard. Your small forward, Isaac Okoro, power forward, Evan Mobley, and your center, Jared Allen, who I love from the Nets days. Phenomenal. Look at the youth in this. Garland, Okoro, Mobley, Allen, all younger. And then Mitchell being the veteran. This is a lineup that's going to be good for a very long time. Donovan Mitchell's the veteran in this, and he's 25 years old. 25 years old. Jared Allen might actually be older than him. He's entering his 6th season in the league. This is a young, very talented lineup. And a lineup that's going to be good not only this year, but for a very long time. So, you look at the perfect fit sometimes. It's almost like this was the perfect fit. Because you have a mix of young talent. You're bringing a guy that's in his prime. You just, all that comes together. This Jazz team is going to be fun to watch for a very long time. Cavs, rather. I meant Cavs. But, you look at the Eastern Conference now. Cavs are a legit threat. They're a legit threat. And, you always, even as a Net fan, this Cavs team could be dominant for a very long time. I would not be surprised if you see this Cavs team, because again, you look at they have a perfect balance. Perfect balance. You have your scoring with Mitchell and Garland, Okoro as well. You have your, you have your paint guys with Mobley and Jared Allen. You got your rebounder, you got your scorer, you got your defense, Mobley and those guys, and Okoro. Like, they have everything. This is a perfect lineup. Like, sometimes lineups are missing the defense. Well, they got that. Sometimes lineups are missing the rebounder. They got that in Jared Allen. They're missing the scoring. Well, Garland and Mitchell can both score. And Mobley and Okoro can play pretty solid defense. Perimeter too. So, this is a perfect lineup where you have that right mix of scoring, you have that mix of rebounding, have that mix of defense, and they're all young. I mean, Mitchell's 25 years old. We act like a lot. And when you look at Donovan Mitchell, he's only been in the league for 5 years. And that's the thing. I mean, he's made such a big impact in the 5 years he's been here. It seems like he's been in the league forever because it seems like you're hearing his name every day because he's making plays all the time. But he's only been in the league for 5 years. He's 25 years old. When we look at Donovan Mitchell, you think that he's like 29 or 30. I mean, it seems like he's been in the league for 10 years, but he's only been in the league for 5 seasons. So, Donovan Mitchell goes to the Cavs. Knicks miss out on yet another draft, or not another draft pick. They miss out on another superstar. And the Cavs, you now look at their roster, and they are a legit threat, not only this year, but for many years to come in the Eastern Conference, and realistically, in the entire league. Look at the Cavs, like, compared to some of these other teams. Like, when you look at these other teams, in the Eastern Conference, the Heat are pretty solid. Obviously, the Celtics, Bucks. Sixers, the future is a little cloudy. What is James Harden? Right? And then what about Embiid? You go to the Raptors, and it's like, I guess we'll see how that all plays out. They've got Fred VanVleet. They got some solid, Scotty Barnes. They got some guys, OG Anunoby. They got some pieces. They're going to be pretty solid. The Bulls are pretty solid as well. The Nets, I mean, even as a Net fan, what's the future like for the Nets? What is it? You don't know if Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are going to be here after this season. They might enter a full bowl. I mean, and that's me as a Net fan. It's the truth. You don't know exactly what the future looks like there. Atlanta is solid. They got a young team, obviously, definitely adding DeJounte Murray. You add Cleveland now. You look at this lineup. Cleveland can be. Cleveland. You look at this lineup. They can be better than Philly. They can be better than Chicago. They can be better than Toronto. When you look, and maybe not Chicago. Chicago's, they got Levine, Rosen. They got some pieces. Maybe not exactly the Bulls, but they can play up to. They're definitely better than the Hornets. Again, I love my Nets, but they're not. The Nets isn't going to be anymore where you look at this Cavs team and you're like, oh, they're a young team and they're a team that's kind of just developing. Now you look at this team and you insert Donovan Mitchell. Again, one player in basketball can make a difference. Other sports, you can't say that. I've always said that. Baseball, you definitely can't. You could have the greatest hitter in the world. You could have no pitching. And look at the Yankees. The Yankees are a prime example. They got Aaron Judge, should be the MVP, and their pitching's iffy. And look at them. They're now 6 games up, 5 games back, or 5 games up in the loss column. So, Cavs are a legit threat now in the Eastern Conference. So that's what I got for the Donovan Mitchell and the Cavaliers news as he is on his way to Cleveland, and Knicks miss out on another opportunity. If you're a Knicks fan, comment down below. What are your thoughts? Because I know there's some Knicks fans that are happy they didn't give up a ton, but when you really look at the deal and you look at the guys they gave up, like you would have thought for Donovan Mitchell they might have had to give up like a Garland or maybe have to give up an Okoro. They gave up Colin Sexton, who's solid, but I mean that's Donovan Mitchell's a perfect replacement, So it's interesting. It definitely is interesting, with the way Knicks do things, but they missed out on another opportunity, and Cavs get a whole lot better, and the Jazz enter a rebuild. So it's always funny whenever you look at these trades. One team gets a whole lot better. There's always that team that misses out, and then there's that team that just stinks now. Look at the Spurs deal. Spurs get a lot better. Spurs get a lot worse. Hawks get a lot better. That's how basketball is. Basketball is one of those leagues where trades are so unfair, where it's not like you trade and kind of get good amount in return. It's like superstar leaves, you now stink. Now look at this deal. Knicks miss out. Jazz stink. Cavs are a legit threat. So that's the Donovan Mitchell deal as he heads to Cleveland. And the Jazz now officially move on from Gobert and Donovan Mitchell after a pretty good amount of time together, and just never worked out. Never were able to get to that next level and winning that championship. All right, so now we go to baseball and college football. Yes, college football this weekend. We'll get to baseball here first. You got the Pirates, Blue Jays tonight. You got the Reds, Rockies, A's, Orioles, Mariners, Guardians, Red Sox, Rangers, Tigers, Royals, Marlins, Braves, Twins, White Sox, Cardinals, Cubs, Astros, Angels, Brewers, Diamondbacks, Dodgers, Padres, and then you got the Giants, Phillies. And as for the Mets, Nationals tonight, Mets come into tonight's game 84-48. Nationals come into tonight's game 45-86. Nationals got Josiah Gray on the mound. He's 7-8 with a 4.67 ERA. And the Yankees got David Peterson on the mound. He's 7-3 with a 3.21 ERA. Over-under set at 8 for this game. Tonight, 7:10 Eastern. You could get it on SNY. As for the Yankees, Rays tonight, Yankees come into tonight's game 79-52. Rays come into tonight's game 72-57. Yankees got Domingo Germán on the mound. He's 2-2 with a 3.19 ERA. And the Rays got Jeffrey Springs. He's 6-4 with a 2.76 ERA. Over-under set at 7.5. Today, 7:10 Eastern, LB Network. I don't know if it's on Prime Video or yes. I don't know. These channels change so much. So you had some college football games on last night. Pittsburgh, West Virginia. Pitt won 38-31 in the backyard, or whatever they call it, brawl. That was a fun game to watch. Was watching that. Wake Forest won 44-10. Oklahoma State won 58-44. And Penn State got a big win last night. They took the win 35-31 over Purdue. So a very big win for Penn State. A very big comeback. Quarterback gets hurt, comes back, touchdown, just great. Yeah, the guy that got caught the pick six. Then he was throwing up on the sideline. I mean, action-packed game. It was so cool because you know college football back is when you hear Joe Klatt and Gus Johnson. You know, when you hear Joe Klatt and Gus Johnson calling games, that's when you know college football is back. Fox does a great job with the college football. So does ESPN. You know, Kirk Herbstreit and Reese Davis. I don't mind them. They're pretty solid. But Fox, Gus Johnson, his you recognize his voice all over. So as for college football this weekend, you got a couple really big games. So this is the AP Top 25. You got Michigan State, Western Michigan, Michigan, Colorado State, NC State, East Carolina, Texas A&M, Sam Houston State. It's got a good game. Arkansas, Cincinnati, 3:30 Eastern ESPN. Cincinnati, obviously, losing Desmond Ridder, losing Sauce Gardner last season. They coming off of a college football playoff experience. They got a really good test early on against a good Arkansas team that very possibly make some noise in the SEC. UTSA, Houston. This is a good one. Georgia, Oregon. Georgia, obviously, winning it all last season. Kirby Smart doing a great job beating Alabama in the national championship game. They're 17-point favorites against Oregon, 3:30 p.m. Eastern ABC. And this is a new time for Oregon. Obviously, Mario Cristobal took over at Miami. This is a new time for Oregon as they look to start up a new era on the right note. It's going to be a tough game, though. I mean, it's going to be tough. Georgia's just a good team, and they're a physical team. They're a physical, good, fun team. They're tough, and they did lose a lot. They obviously lost Jordan Davis, Trayvon Walker. They did lose some pieces, but still a very good roster. Oklahoma, UTEP, BYU, South Florida, Mississippi, Troy. The Lincoln Riley era gets going with the USC as they'll play Rice, Baylor, Albany, Wisconsin, Illinois State, Kentucky, Miami, Florida, Utah. That's going to be an interesting one. Utah's a very good team. Florida, new coach, new time, interesting game there. And then you have Alabama, Utah State, and in the nightcap, the fun one, Ohio State, Notre Dame, 7:30 Eastern, ABC. It'll be fun. That's going to be a good game. Ohio State, Notre Dame. You also got some other games. Miami against Bethune-Cookman, 3:30 Eastern, ACC Network. And you also got Clemson, Georgia Tech. That will be 8 Eastern, ESPN on Monday. So the Mario Cristobal era gets going in Miami on Saturday as well. But there's some really good games. Georgia, Oregon, a good one. Ohio State, obviously Notre Dame being the nightcap. And I believe the college game day, it's going to be so fun. There's nothing better getting up, Saturday mornings and hearing the college game day crew. It's awesome. They do a great, great job. And then the next day you got football. And next week we'll be talking about college football and NFL on the Football Friday next week. So that should be good. As for fantasy baseball, I'm currently winning or losing in my one of my leagues, 133-124. Today I've got Eric Lauer, Jordan Montgomery on the mound, and in my other league, I am currently losing 155-175. I got Kyle Gibson, Jeffrey Springs on the mound. By the way, I did my final fantasy football, so I'm in 3 fantasy football leagues this year. I'm in a 12-team PPR, and I'm in I believe it's a 12-team PPR, and I'm in a 10-team PPR. So I'm in 3 PPR leagues. 2 leagues are 12-team PPR, 10-team PPR. Yesterday, I did my 8-team PPR league. So a little bit more talent on the roster, but this is my team that came out of it yesterday. I got Dak Prescott at quarterback, Dalvin Cook at running back, Aaron Jones at running back. And then you look at my receivers. I do 3 receivers in this league. Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin. Tight end, Dalton Schultz. Flex, David Montgomery. Defense, Colts defense. And my kickers, Tyler Bass. And in my bench is Miles Sanders, Adam Thielen, Michael Thomas, A.J. Dillon, Brandon Ayuk. And I did take a backup quarterback, Matt Stafford, just in case if Dak kind of struggles, and obviously the bye week and injuries and all that stuff. So don't always take backup quarterbacks, but sometimes I do. So that's my lead. That's my team there. So all 3 fantasy football drafts are now over, and now fantasy football is entering the season. Now, this time next week will be Football Friday. I will be giving you my game picks and getting you ready for the first Sunday. We'll also be talking and recapping the Bills-Rams game. So enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the college football. Enjoy the Labor Day weekend. Obviously, kind of the final big summer weekend before reality kind of sets in with fall coming up, and then all the football and baseball and October baseball. So enjoy the final big weekend of summer. And as always, I will see you all back here on the flip side on Monday. If you want to, check it out. Apple Podcasts on Sunday. I'll obviously have my Bubs Talking Baseball podcast up on there. And, might have a couple In the Trenches podcasts coming up too, depending on news and stuff like that. So keep an eye out for all those. And, as always, enjoy your weekend. I will see you all back here on the flip side. See you all back here on Monday. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.